Hello and welcome to Homesteading Around the Mission. Today we are going to be talking about cheese, and you're probably wondering, if we're talking about cheese, why I'm holding, which might look funny to some people may know what these are already, why am I holding these bell pepper looking like fruits? Well, because these are cashews. We picked these here just up the road on a walk towards the next village over to Mashabo village. We picked these. This is actually the cashew fruit, and this is the seed on top with the nut inside, and it's the nut inside that we're going to be focusing on. We are going to be talking about not dairy cheese, but vegan cheese, and we're going to share with you one of our favorite vegan cheese recipes. And actually we're going to call this 3 cheeses because we have 3 different versions of vegan cheese. We want to share with you how easy it is to transition from a dairy diet to a non-dairy diet. Stay tuned and we're going to share more. So here we are with our macaroni and cheese version of cheese, and this is made with diced potatoes, onions, and carrots, which I've already done. We're going to, once it's finished, put it over our macaroni noodles, and all you need to do once you've diced the 3 medium potatoes, 1 onion, and 2 medium-sized carrots — I actually used 1 medium-sized carrot in here — is you're going to put it onto a steamer pot and let it steam until it's soft, and then cover the lid. And if you'll come a little closer, I'll show you something kind of fun and interesting. Who doesn't love macaroni and cheese while having mashed potatoes? So inside I've got the potatoes boiling for mashed potatoes, which we'll eat with our macaroni and cheese, and then I just put the steamer pot on top, and we'll be making our cheese sauce. So now we have finished steaming the potatoes, onions, and carrots, and we're going to put them into a blender. This is our Vitamix we're going to put them into. We're going to add a little bit of water. I don't really have specific measurements on the water. I will post a recipe down below, but just add enough water that you can begin to blend it. And then we are going to add a little bit of salt. Again, this can all be kind of measured to your taste. I'm using roughly a tablespoon. I'm going to put some garlic powder. This is onion, and I'm going to put some garlic powder in. And what I normally do, because we've made this quite a few times, is we just put it in there and then check it. And we're going to use 3 tablespoons to start with of yeast flakes. Outside we've got a nice wind, and it kind of blows things around. So let's start it, and we'll just see what the consistency is and see if it's going to work. We are back now with recipe number 2. This is going to be another mac and cheese version, a vegan version of cheese. We're going to be doing this with garbanzo beans, and in all honesty, I had planned to do a sliceable cheese with the garbanzo beans, but in our move from Guyana, I lost my recipe from a dear friend over there, so I will try to find it, and I maybe post another video with sliceable vegan cheese, or I might try to put it down in the notes, one or the other. But again, this is going to be with garbanzo beans. Not cashews yet. That's going to be our last, third, and actually our family's most favorite recipe, and it will be a nacho cheese. But for this one, we will be making a cheese using these ingredients. We have a pasta of your choice. You can use the traditional noodles that you would use for mac and cheese. I happen to have on hand gluten-free penne pasta. That's what we'll be putting ours on. And you're going to need nutritional yeast flakes, Bragg's aminos, or you could use tamari sauce, or you could also use soy sauce, your choice. And I also have a vegetable broth. It would be best if you could use a low sodium. I don't have that today, as you can tell, but this is very high in sodium, so to balance it out, you probably want a low sodium veggie broth. And we have our 2 cups of chickpeas here, some tahini, and then a couple of seasonings and some lemon juice. Now the lemon juice could be either 1 extra large lemon or you could use store-bought pour lemon juice. And then the seasonings were garlic powder, which is about 1/2 teaspoon, and I'll have the recipe down below. Onion powder, and turmeric is optional. I always like to add turmeric to anything I can. For this recipe, it's actually in there for color, but turmeric is great for anti-inflammation in the body. So that's a good thing to do. This recipe is very straightforward and simple. I'm going to move the pasta out of the way. We'll cook that separately here in a minute. But all you need is a blender, and I'm going to use our Vitamix. And I am just going to put in these ingredients. So we're going to put in the yeast flakes here, and we have our veggie broth. We're going to go ahead and put that in. Keep in mind that veggie broth in the recipe below says 1/4 to 3/4, depending on how thick you want it. So I'm going to start with about half of this, and then I will add, once I start blending it, if I think it needs more. We've got 2 cups of chickpeas. And also to note on the chickpeas, you'll see this in the recipe too, if you could reserve some of the liquid, it's called aquafaba, and that will also help to either thicken it or to, if you want it thicker or thinner, you could use more or less of that. Your lemon juice is here. So I'm going to put these aside now. Now we're going to do our seasonings, and we have 1/2 teaspoon of the onion powder. Let me get to that here. And garlic powder. So I'm going to do half, and usually I'm kind of messy in how much I pour in because I like more anyways. So I'm not really strict on exactly 1/2. And we're going to do the turmeric, which is 1/2 also. Let's do that. Now that, if you're a little less, might be even better. So probably got a little less there of that. And we're going to put in 1 to 2 teaspoons of the Bragg's aminos, I guess depending on your taste. It will be, Bragg's can be salty, so if you like it a little saltier. And this recipe does say salt to taste. You may want to leave the salt out at first and then see if you even want to add salt. And then we're going to do, make sure it's nice and shaken up, a tablespoon of tahini in here. Now once this is all in, which we're almost there, I will give it a little shake of salt. We are going to blend this on the Vitamix, and we'll be right back because during the time we're gone, we're going to start cooking our pasta, blend this to the right consistency, and then we're going to show you how it coats the pasta, and so we'll be back in just a minute. So now we have finished blending the cheese sauce. You can see it here. It is really, I did a little thinner, so it'll be ready to pour, and I've got the noodles in the pot ready to go, and what we're going to do is simply pour the cheese sauce right over the noodles just like you would in any regular mac and cheese recipe. And I'm going to do just a little to start with, and then I can show you. It's a nice consistency. There you go. Nice, cheesy mac and cheese. We are back now, finishing up the video with our last recipe for vegan cashew cheese. This has been a family favorite of ours for years, and we want to share it with you. You can see we are not in our mission house, as we weren't in the last video. We are in our family's camper here in the United States, so this has been a kind of a 2-3 part video, and we're going to be finishing up now, and then after that we'll come back and we'll talk about the benefits of eliminating or at least limiting dairy from your diet. For this recipe, you are going to need obviously cashews. What I'm using today is lightly salted cashews, simply because that's what I had in the cabinet. You can choose to use raw cashews with no salt, and if you do, you might want to increase the salt that you put into the recipe. If you're going to use heavily salted cashews, you want to decrease the salt. So we're going to use cashews, and we are going to use, this is 1 cup and 3/4 of cashews. So that's what we're going to put into the blender. You will need for this recipe a blender again, or we have a Vitamix. You could probably do it in a food processor as well. You're also going to need 1 cup of mildly warm water. You could warm water, so you're going to put that in. You are going to use let's see here, I'm checking my recipe because the normal thing I do here is I just add stuff. So we've got 1 teaspoon of salt we're going to put in. I've made this so many times, I'm normally just kind of dumping in to taste. And this is that's a good point. This is actually a really versatile recipe. Once you've done it a few times, you can, if you wanted a little runnier for your cheese, like your nacho cheese, you can put a little more water, you can put a little less if you want it thicker. We are also going to use yeast flakes. You will need 3 tablespoons of the yeast flakes. The recipe that I'm going to post below lists that you can add lemon to this. I really find I like it better without the lemon. Try it and you choose what you like best. It also is a recipe that when I first started making it, I always used pimentos to give it kind of the reddish cheese, yellowish cheese, which also the yeast flake does, in a nicer flavor. But I found that every time I went to make the recipe, I might have the cashews, I might have the other things, but I didn't have the pimentos. So I started experimenting. First, I did it with red bell peppers. That's delicious also. And then it really, most of the time, came down to I had tomatoes on hand. So this is what I'm using today. I'm just putting them right into the blender. I'm going to start with 1. Let's see if we need a second. I'm not going to use the lemon, so we're going to put it back. And then you're going to add your garlic powder and your onion powder. For the garlic powder, we are going to put in 1/4 of a teaspoon. And oftentimes, I know that I end up putting more than that. I really like garlic. So we're going to do the garlic powder. And then on the onion powder, we're going to go with 2 teaspoons. And after this, we are ready to go. That's just how simple this is. Now, if you have a Vitamix like what we're using here, the Vitamix blends at such a force that this gives you a nice hot, warm vegan cheese at the end of this. So we're going to take a minute and blend, and we'll be right back to show you how this looks. So we're back now, and I went ahead while we were off camera and I blended this on high for a minute, 2 minutes. What you're looking for is that this would get very creamy. In fact, more than creamy, it's pourable, and it is the consistency of nacho cheese. I don't know if you can see that right there. But we are going to use this today. This is going to be nacho cheese in something that we call haystacks, which is basically, you might call them chili Fritos or nachos like you would get in a restaurant. So you have your chips and your beans and all the wonderful toppings, salsa, and then we would have the nacho cheese on top. So you can see the consistency there. And it is absolutely delicious. Well, there you have it. 3 dairy-free cheeses that we hope can be a blessing for your family. And as we stated earlier, we have a few statistics we wanted to share with you on the benefits of eliminating or limiting dairy from your diet or from your family's diet. And these that I'm going to share with you are from the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. This group has a wealth of information on their website. I'm going to post that down below. I would also recommend, if you're interested in this at all, that Forks Over Knives is an excellent movie, and they have a companion website. And then the China Study book is very enlightening on some of these dietary issues, as well as Wildwood Health Center. And I will share all of these things down below in the notes. If you or your family are struggling with any of the symptoms that I might list and you think, hey, this could be us, I hope this can be a blessing for you. So, some of the statistics that are shared on the website in regards to dairy. The first one that I wanted to share with you is there is an increased risk for cancers in higher dairy intake diets. So what does that mean? It means you're more at risk if you eat a lot of dairy for various cancers. Prostate cancer, lung cancer, breast cancer, and even ovarian cancer are all studied in the research as being linked to dairy. And the main part in dairy that typically causes and is the culprit is casein, which you will find in dairy. So sometimes you can go to the store and find something that says dairy-free in your substitutions, like cheese substitutions you might find. But if you flip over and you look at the back, you'll see an ingredient called casein. And so it really doesn't benefit you much if you're continuing to use some of the components that actually are cancer linked. So that might be something you want to check into. Another statistic that's provided is that consuming 3 cups of milk or more increases hip fracture for women by 60%. And that's a huge extra risk, especially as we as women age and our bone health is a very vital concern for us. That is something definitely to take into account. Also, that cheese is the top source of artery clogging saturated fat in the American diet. So for heart health, we definitely don't want to clog the arteries. Very, very important. We want to keep our arteries flowing and clean. And the last thing I wanted to mention to you is that 60% of people are actually lactose intolerant. Now, whether people are aware of their intolerance to lactose or not, they may not be. But some of the symptoms are diarrhea, cramping, bloating. So if you or your children are experiencing these, you might experiment with limiting dairy in your meals and see if that does help with some of the symptoms. I know, speaking from experience, our family eliminated dairy from our diet about 6 years ago, and we have seen some really wonderful side effects from that. One has been helping to clear the skin. Dairy can be linked to acne, so that's been a blessing. Another one is when there's cold or flu season, dairy has the ability to thicken the phlegm in the body. It doesn't necessarily increase mucus, but it can seem as though it does. So what you want to do is to, especially during cold and flu season, limit your dairy intake, because it's going to help your cold or your flu, if you do get sick, go by much faster. I know for me, speaking from experience, I've definitely had that. We don't get sick that often anymore, but when we do, it definitely helps now compared to 6 years ago when we had dairy in our diet. So we offer these as just help for anyone that is interested. We hope that you'll do your own research, and we pray that this information and the recipes will be a blessing for your family from our family. Until we see you again, God bless.
It's cashews.
Cashews! Let me see that up close.
There's a cashew right up here.
And then what is this part?
You eat it.
You eat this part?
Yep.